While the earliest forms of writing might have emerged from practical necessities in nascent marketplaces and administrative centers, it was within the hallowed precincts of temples that the role of the scribe truly solidified and gained its profound significance. Temples in ancient Mesopotamia were not merely places of worship. They were vast economic and administrative hubs, centers of learning, and repositories of cultural memory. They owned extensive lands, managed agricultural produce, oversaw craft production, and administered complex religious rituals. All of these activities generated a constant stream of information that needed to be meticulously recorded, accounted for, and preserved. This is where the temple scribes stepped in. They were indispensable to the smooth functioning of these powerful institutions. Imagine a scribe, bathed in the soft, diffused light filtering through high temple windows, seated on a low stool in a quiet courtyard or a dedicated scriptorium. The air might be filled with the distant chanting of priests or the murmur of daily temple life, but within his immediate space there was an aura of focused concentration. Before him, a freshly prepared clay tablet, still damp and pliant, awaited its inscription. His stylus, a carefully trimmed reed, was poised in his hand. With deliberate, practiced movements, he would press the wedge-shaped tip into the clay, transforming abstract thought into enduring symbols. These temple scribes were privy to a wealth of information that was inaccessible to the vast majority of the population. They meticulously recorded the tithes and offerings brought to the temple, detailing every measure of grain, every head of livestock, every bolt of cloth. They managed the temple's estates, accounting for the laborers employed, the crops harvested, and the rents collected. Beyond these economic accounts, they were tasked with preserving the sacred texts, the hymns, prayers, incantations, and myths that formed the core of their religious beliefs. They copied these ancient compositions, ensuring their accurate transmission from one generation of priests and temple officials to the next. This act of copying was not a passive undertaking. It was a deeply reverent one, a form of devotional practice in itself. Each stroke of the stylus was an affirmation of faith, a contribution to the perpetuation of the divine order as understood by their society. The process of becoming a temple scribe was rigorous and demanding. Scribes were typically educated from a young age in specialized schools, often attached to the temples themselves. These institutions, known as adubas or tablet houses, were essentially the ancient world's universities. Here, aspiring scribes would undergo years of intensive training. They learned to read and write hundreds, sometimes thousands of cuneiform signs, mastering the nuances of Sumerian and later Akkadian grammar and vocabulary. Their curriculum was extensive, encompassing not only the practical skills of writing and accounting, but also literature, history, mathematics, astronomy, and law. They practiced their craft diligently, painstakingly copying model texts, writing out lists of vocabulary, and attempting increasingly complex compositions. The exercises found on many surviving tablets, simple lists of signs, basic arithmetic problems, or attempts at copying literary passages, offer a poignant glimpse into this demanding educational journey. Failure to meet the high standards of the aduba could result in harsh punishment, as evidenced by ancient texts that speak of beatings for poor penmanship or insufficient diligence. This harshness, however, underscored the immense value placed upon the scribal profession. The scribal schools were not just places of rote memorization. They were also incubators of intellectual development. Within these walls, the great literary works of Mesopotamia were preserved, studied, and disseminated. Epics like the Epic of Gilgamesh, wisdom literature, proverbs, and even early forms of drama were meticulously copied and preserved by scribes. They were the librarians and archivists of their time, safeguarding the intellectual heritage of their civilization. The act of copying these texts was not merely about mechanical reproduction. It involved a deep engagement with the material, an understanding of its meaning, and an appreciation for its cultural significance. Scribes developed a sophisticated understanding of literary genres, stylistic conventions, and rhetorical devices. They were the first literary critics, the first scholars who could analyze and interpret the vast body of written material that was accumulating. The temple scribes' role extended beyond the purely religious and literary. They were also crucial players in the legal and administrative systems of the time. Laws, royal decrees, treaties, and contracts were all inscribed on clay tablets. Scribes drafted these documents, ensuring that the language was precise and unambiguous, and then they ensured their preservation in temple archives. This meticulous record-keeping provided a foundation for justice and order. When disputes arose or when historical precedent was needed, it was the scribes who could consult the archives and provide the relevant texts. The development of complex legal systems, such as the famous Code of Hammurabi, would have been impossible without the expertise of scribes to codify, record, and disseminate these laws. The ability to create a permanent, verifiable record of agreements and rulings was a cornerstone of Mesopotamian civilization, fostering trust and enabling complex societal structures to flourish. Furthermore, the temple scribes played a vital role in the astronomical and calendrical systems. Understanding the cycles of the stars and planets was essential for religious observances, agricultural planning, and the accurate measurement of time. Scribes meticulously recorded celestial observations, developing sophisticated methods for predicting eclipses and understanding the movements of the heavens. These observations, often recorded on specialized astronomical diaries, formed the basis of Mesopotamian astrology and astronomy, fields that were deeply intertwined with religious beliefs. The temple, as a center of cosmic understanding, relied on its scribes to maintain these vital records, ensuring that the community could align its activities with the perceived will of the gods and the natural rhythms of the universe. The position of a temple scribe was one of considerable prestige and influence. They occupied a unique space in society, bridging the gap between the illiterate masses and the elite circles of priests, royalty, and high administrators. Their literacy and knowledge granted them access to power and information, and they were often employed in critical roles within the temple hierarchy and even within the royal court. While they might not have held the ultimate authority, their advice and their records were highly valued. They were the keepers of secrets, the interpreters of ancient wisdom, and the architects of the written record. Their hands, guided by years of training and a deep understanding of their craft, literally shaped the memory and the future of their civilization. The longevity of the scribal tradition within temples speaks to its fundamental importance. For thousands of years, the cuneiform script and the knowledge it represented were sustained and transmitted by these dedicated individuals. Even as empires rose and fell, and as different languages and dynasties came to prominence, the role of the scribe, particularly within the temple context, remained remarkably consistent. The skills acquired in the Adaba were transferable and enduring, ensuring that the accumulated wisdom of generations was not lost. The physical act of impressing wedges into clay might seem archaic by modern standards, but the intellectual endeavor it represented, the commitment to accuracy, the dedication to preservation, and the pursuit of knowledge, was as vital then as it is today. The temple scribes, in their quiet dedication, were the silent architects of enduring civilization, their hands holding the very essence of history, belief, and understanding. The very act of inscribing wedges into clay, as we've seen, was a monumental achievement. It transformed fleeting thoughts into tangible records, building the foundations of administration, law, and religious practice. Yet, before the stylus ever touched a damp tablet in a temple scriptorium, the people of Mesopotamia possessed a rich tapestry of stories. These were not yet bound by the permanence of clay, but were living, breathing narratives woven into the fabric of daily life and passed down through generations by the spoken word. Imagine the scene: a nomadic encampment under a vast, star-dusted sky, or a village gathering around the warmth of a communal fire as dusk settles. In these intimate settings, amidst the flickering shadows cast by the flames, the earliest myths and epics came to life, sung, recited, and retold. These tales, shared around the firelight, were more than mere entertainment. They were the vessels of collective memory, the means by which a people understood their origins, their place in the cosmos, and the complex relationships between the human and divine realms. These oral traditions, steeped in the mysteries of creation and the triumphs of heroes, predated the systematic recording of history and literature. They were the primal songs and sagas that articulated a worldview, offering explanations for the inexplicable and providing a framework for understanding existence itself. The themes explored in these nascent narratives were universal, yet deeply rooted in the Mesopotamian experience. The awe-inspiring power of the gods, the often capricious nature of fate, the struggles of humanity against overwhelming forces, and the enduring quest for meaning and immortality. They served to bind communities together, reinforcing shared values, cultural norms, and a collective identity. The stories of creation in particular were foundational, providing answers to the most profound questions. How did the world come to be? What is the relationship between the creator gods and the created beings? Why do humans suffer? One of the most significant of these early creation myths, later to be immortalized in written form, is the Enuma Elish. While the most complete surviving version dates to the Neo-Assyrian period, its roots run deep into earlier Sumerian and Akkadian traditions. This epic poem is a grand cosmic drama, detailing the primordial struggle between the forces of chaos and order. It begins in a time before time, when only the twin primordial deities, Apsu, fresh water, and Tiamat, salt water, existed. From their mingling arose younger gods, whose boisterous activities disturbed Apsu, leading him to plot their destruction. It is the wise god Ea who thwarts Apsu's plan. But Tiamat, enraged by the death of her consort and the plight of her offspring, vows vengeance. This sets the stage for a colossal battle, a conflict of divine titans that reshapes the very fabric of existence. The narrative vividly describes Tiamat's monstrous form, her army of demons, and the terrifying might she wields. It is against this backdrop of existential threat that the hero god Marduk emerges. Chosen by the younger gods as their champion, Marduk is bestowed with supreme power and sets out to confront Tiamat. His victory is not merely physical, it is a masterful act of cosmic engineering. After slaying Tiamat, Marduk splits her corpse in two, using one half to form the heavens and the other to create the earth, establishing the ordered universe as the Mesopotamians knew it. He then meticulously organizes the celestial bodies, setting the stars in their courses and establishing the cycles of the moon and sun, thereby bringing order and predictability to the cosmos. Crucially, Marduk also creates humankind from the blood of Tiamat's defeated general, Kingu. Humans are fashioned from this impious blood, destined to serve the gods, to bear their burdens, and to ensure their eternal comfort and sustenance. This aspect of the myth is particularly revealing about the Mesopotamian view of humanity's role. Mortals exist to alleviate the toil of the divine, a perpetual underclass in the grand cosmic hierarchy. The Enuma Elish therefore served multiple crucial functions. It provided a cosmological narrative that explained the origins of the universe and humanity's place within it. It legitimized the supremacy of Babylon and its patron deity, Marduk, particularly within the context of Babylonian festivals like the New Year's Akitu festival, where the myth was publicly recited. It also offered a powerful allegory for the triumph of order over chaos, a reassuring message in a world often prone to natural disasters, political upheaval, and the ever-present threat of the unknown. The very act of reciting and celebrating this myth reinforced the divine right of kings and the established social order, linking the prosperity of the city and its people to the proper appeasement and worship of Marduk.